Hey, how's it going, everyone? Justin again. As always, thanks for watching my channel. Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about a lot of really new mechanics, new technicians, new lube techs, things that you need to expect as a newbie coming into the industry. I don't think this is talked about enough. I know we've talked about it in the past, but I want to throw out a couple of tidbits for you guys. I am trying a new beer tonight. It's called 805. It's alright. It's not over the top hoppy. There is a little bit of hop to it, but over the top, no. It's like that fair middle ground where I can still enjoy the beer, but it does have a little bit of a hop to it. Alright. That being said, let's talk about some stuff that you, as the newbie lube tech or newbie mechanic or newbie auto tech, need to consider. One is definitely where you're working. If you're working at a lube, oil filter and tire shop, you're doing a lot of oil changes, a lot of tires, a lot of tire rotations, a lot of alignments. You'll slowly be worked into having to do brakes and flushes and things like that. Maybe shocks and struts, whatever. They'll work you into a lot of that stuff. Working as a entry-level dealership tech, they will put you through their own courses and they'll put you through their own training. But in the beginning, you'll be doing a lot of, lube oil filters and tire rotations and things like that. And maybe even the occasional brake job, but mostly sticking you closer towards fluid flushes, air filters, etc. So you'll learn and gain the ability of being able to figure out where all these different things are located, including cabin air filters and things of that nature. Working at an independent shop, you may be started off doing lube oil filter services and transmission services, but a lot of times you're going to be doing a lot of things that have to do with maintaining and cleaning of the shop. Sweeping floors, taking the oil filters out, draining the oil caddies, picking up the used shop rags, migrating the cans of brake cleaner back to the shelf where they go, maybe assisting the shop foreman or shop owner in a couple of projects just to try to get your feet wet a little bit. All of which you're still not really required to have your own tools. Would it be nice if you did? Yes, but from time to time you do get a few youngins that come in and it's mostly either a summer job or a part-time gig until they can figure out whether or not they actually want to do it. So that being said, you might find yourself not having any tools or a tool cart or service cart. You might find yourself borrowing tools from everybody else. That being said, if you are going to be borrowing tools from somebody else, maybe you feel comfortable with a certain person, you just click and everything works out and so forth. The most ideal thing that you could possibly do is borrow the tool, use it, do what you gotta do, and return the tool back to him, because chances are he's working on a project and he may or may not, depends on the project that he's working on, he may or may not need that specific tool that you borrowed. So borrowing a tool for a prolonged period of time and not returning it right away can be a little bit daunting to the person you're borrowing it from, because now they have to hunt it down throughout the shop and look for it and figure out if you borrowed it or not. So that's going to be a big pet peeve, and it could lead to that person not wanting to loan you said tool. So who else can you borrow from? Well, if there's a shop foreman or a shop owner who are not doing so much remove and replace or repairs, they're doing mostly diag, but they do have tools to be able to do the remove and replace and things like that, you may borrow from them more frequently than you borrow from the other mechanics or technicians in the shop, because he's going to be using a DVLM, a scan tool, a scope, test lights and things like that. Things that you're never going to actually run into as a starting mechanic or a starting lube tech. As a starting lube tech and mechanic, you're going to be using a lot of sockets, a lot of ratchets, a lot of ratchet wrenches, etc., etc. And the shop foreman or the shop owner, depending on if you're working at an independent shop or a dealership, are going to be more than willing to loan you said tools to do the job and then bring them back. They'll be a little bit more cordial as far as how long it takes you to return said tool. And as long as you clean it up and put it back in the same exact position that you found it, or in the same exact drawer that you found it, life is good and everything's okay. If you're borrowing it from somebody that actually uses his tools throughout the entire day and he has to juggle between tools during certain jobs, it might be a little bit more challenging. It might not be as accepting as, you know, somebody that doesn't use them very often. So you could run into that. The idea behind the whole thing is, look, if you're going to borrow a tool, use it for what you got to use it for, and bring it right back. Bring it back as soon as you possibly can, as if the tool had never left the toolbox, almost, so to speak. And if you need it again, come back, borrow it again, use it for what you got to use it for, and then turn around and bring it back. I cannot count how many times in the last month that I've loaned or allowed my tools to go wayside to assist a starting lube tech in his job for the summer, and how I have to go hunting for them or searching for them to find them. It can be rather daunting, and it is what it is. You have to work around it. You'll find as a senior tech or senior mechanic that these are some of the things that you do have to find yourself working around, you know, throughout the day or throughout the week or whatever. Other things to think about is that when you're starting out at a job and you consider like your time frame of when you have to be there and when you have to leave. Now, some guys might be on a part-time schedule, some guys might be on more of a seasonal schedule where you don't have to come in until a certain time, and you can leave a little bit early than the other guys because you're on a shorter time frame. That's all well and good, but what you have to know and understand is that you cannot just leave your area or that vehicle in a cluster. So if you're working on a transmission service and you're doing a transmission filter fluid, etc. exchange, you get the trans pan put back up, you dump some fluid in, you say I gotta go, and you book it. You're leaving the rest of the shop to try to figure out if you put the rest of the oil in, or the appropriate amount of oil in. We got to test drive your vehicle, make sure everything's all good. If there's a fluid drip, we got to check that. So you really got to understand that when you're working on a vehicle, before you leave, there are going to be certain times, especially at the independent shop level, that you're going to have to stay a little bit longer and do a little bit more than the norm. Now, at a tire or lube shop or a dealership, they may not give a crap or whatever, and the vehicle can sit there until the next day when you can touch it again. But at an independent shop, it's a lot different. They want to make sure the vehicle's actually done. So if the vehicle only came in for an oil change or a transmission service, and you got halfway done and then you decide to clock off and leave, well then who's to know what it is that you have done or not done? And now they have to go back through your work to figure out what it is that you've done and not done, to make sure the vehicle can leave. So either A, express what you've done and not done leading up to that point, or B, finish the job and do what you need to do for that vehicle to leave the shop. So a couple of pointers there. Also, showing up on time, or showing up on time for work is very important. Leaving on time, not so important, but showing up on time is definitely important. So I remember when I had my very first job, I loved going to work. I loved going to work. I loved collecting the overtime. I would do everything that I possibly could. Now, granted, I was not in the mechanical field for my first job, but I was very excited about it. I was there on time, if not early, and it was always told me, my football coach told me, it's better to be early than late, but it's better to be late than never. You want to avoid being late. So as a young person just entering the industry, or just entering any kind of a job really, you want to make sure you're as early as you possibly can, whether it's 10, 15, 30 minutes early. You want to make sure you're there as early as you possibly can be before you start the job. That gives you a little bit of wiggle room to grab some soda from the convenience store, get some gas, check your bank account balance, get set up, get changed if you haven't changed already, get washed up, whatever the case may be. I mean, it just gives you extra time. If there's an emergency vehicle trying to pass by you, or there's a car accident, you have ample time to be able to figure it out and get there on time. So always allow for more time than you would expect. When you get into a rhythm and you know exactly how much time it's roughly going to take you, then you can leave the house a little bit later and so forth and so forth. But I was always, of the assumption when I was younger and I was leaving for my job, I was so excited about it that I left super, super early, did everything that I had to do in town, got there with plenty of time, and had a blast. And I made money, and it was great. Now, granted, back then, minimum wage standard for me during that time frame was like $5.15 an hour, and I was ecstatic about that. So somebody that is, I don't know, 16 to 18 years old, that's average minimum wage is now $10 an hour, still live at home with mom and dad, you should be ecstatic, because now you're making $10 or more an hour at a job, and you don't have to pay rent, you don't have to pay utilities, you don't have to pay for this, that, and the other. It just helps aid you in buying all the BS shit that we like to buy when we're young. Sunglasses, t-shirts, pants, shoes, whatever your flavor is. It's one of those things that you're going to end up spending money as you make money. Maybe your parents talked to you and said, hey, if you want a car, you got to pay for your own insurance, have a summertime job. So now you got to save a little bit of money. So now it teaches you how to save money to pay for your car insurance, and you go that route. Maybe your parents don't charge you at all and they just expect that you're going to save some money to go towards college, which is another good thing. So you end up saving money to go to community college. Whatever the case may be, look, there's going to be times where you're living with your folks, you have no responsibilities, and they'll worry about kids, food, rent, utilities, all this extra stuff. You're going to want to hunker down and figure out either A, I'm saving money, or B, I'm spending it on stupid shit. That's just the way that it goes. When you're a young adolescent teen, you want to take your girlfriend out to the movies, to dinner, to this, to that, to show her a good time and whatever. And because you're making, money and what have you, you have to understand you are still going to need to have some kind of savings put aside for the future. You don't know what you're going to run into. Maybe you get in a car accident and your deductible is $500 to $1,000. Mommy and daddy can't pay for it, and now you're left with the bill. Do you have $500 to $1,000 set aside in case you need to pay for that deductible? That's something you need to think about. When it comes to basic maintenance, your alternator goes out. Maybe you're not a mechanic. Maybe you're just a teen and you're just doing your thing and working a regular job. But the alternator is going to cost you, I don't know, $100 to $200 to replace. Do you have that to be able to do that? Or if you're replacing it yourself and you're a DIYer, do you have the $80 to $180 to pay for it? So all these things need to be in the back of your head as you're traveling, as you're, working and everything else. You got to understand there's going to be expenditures. So if you don't have expenditures now, you will have them later. It's a lot of things that you need to think about as a young growing teen. Unfortunately, this person that I'm talking to that had just started as a part-time job at our shop had his front window bashed in by some kids that did not like him or whatever. They went by his house and they smashed his front window with a baseball bat and then took off running. Really childish. That's the world that we live in. So now what? So now he has to drive around with his window bashed in, which could get him a ticket or a fix-it ticket until it's fixed. So now he needs to pay for that. How are you going to do that during the summertime if you're taking vacation all the time? That leads us to our last point. If you do have a summer job or it is a summer gig for you, you have to understand that you cannot just take vacation whenever you want to take vacation. You cannot just take off whenever you want to take off and expect that not only is your employer going to be cool with it, but that you're going to have money to afford any kind of necessary repairs or damages that occur to your vehicle or to your financial aid as you progress. So now you have to start thinking about that. Weird shit happens. You piss off the wrong person, you date the wrong girl. Next thing you know, you're in a headache full of money where you have to pay to have something fixed. Maybe your deductible is $500 for your car for full coverage, but the window's only going to cost you $250. So what do you pay? Do you pay the $250 or do you pay the $500? Obviously you pay the $250 to have the window fixed, but you still got to come up with it. So I don't know. I'm ranting. Hopefully you guys understand where it is that I'm coming from. But look, if it's a first-time job, it's as a mechanic, as a technician, as a lube tech, whatever, look, save money for the inevitable, the things that are coming up that you don't expect. Save money for that. Also, you know, be on time, be courteous of as far as tool borrowing and things like that go. Understand that when you have a job, you have a job. You have responsibilities to live up to. You can't just take off and do whatever you want to do. If you want to take off and do whatever you want to do, you're in the wrong profession. You know, a mechanic job might not be for you. If you worked at Del Taco or Taco Bell, I'm sure they give two shits whether or not you want to go to Magic Mountain or Disneyland. You know what I'm saying? But if you work at an automotive shop where we're very busy and we have a lot of clients that come in, you're going to be held accountable to be there and on time and during those days of operation. And if you are going to take vacation, you got to make sure to give them at least, if you possibly can, 2 weeks notice. At the minimum, 2 weeks notice before you take vacation. That's all I got for this video, guys. Thanks as always for watching. Make sure to hit the like video, or the like if you like the video, the dislike if you dislike the video. Leave your comments below if you've ran into this situation before. And we'll see you guys next time. Cheers, peace, and we'll see you next time.